Okay, open the window. So, Dittmer's had some picanhas. Now it turns out that actually the Chavez market, at least the one in San Mateo, regularly stocks picanha at a much lower price than Dittmer's, except that I can walk to Dittmer's, and it's a field trip to go up to San Mateo. And under the current circumstances, right, not going so far is better. And so they sell picanha, and I've already eaten kind of 2 pieces off of this at a pretty in a good sized chunk, and then you have to slice off the steaks you want. There's plenty of videos on the internet about slicing picanha. Right, picanha has a grain that goes in a particular direction. It goes this way, and you want to slice with the grain here, so that when you eat the steak, you cut against the grain when you slice, and it produces a very, very tasty steak. So you get to choose how big you want based on thickness. Of course, thicker makes it easier to cook something to medium rare. So I would take about maybe an inch or so. Right, it's probably a little bit less than an inch, but it's fine. I don't want to eat a huge amount. And then cut the piece of steak off. And what's interesting is that this is actually not it's not a gigantic serving. Right? So I managed to cut fairly thick, but this is not. It's actually a pretty reasonable sized serving. Right? So what do you mean by reasonable? Well, I'm gonna grab 2 other steaks out from the freezer. So this is a ribeye, and this is a ribeye that's much smaller than usual, and this is a New York strip. Both of these I bought them from Dittmer's, and they had quote-unquote better pieces, but I wanted smaller. So what we'll see here is that this guy is not exactly even thickness. It's much thicker on this end, thinner on this end. Weigh it. This guy is 306 grams, so that's like 10.5-ish ounces. And one of the things about ribeyes is ribeyes always have to have the same cross-section. It's going to be this cross-sectional area. So if you want lighter, or if you want a lighter piece, right, a smaller portion, then you can only go thinner. The thinner presents problems in cooking, because thicker is always easier to cook. And then this guy here, this New York strip, is a bit thicker, but again, it's kind of tapered on this end. So it's thicker on this end and thinner as it goes out towards this end, because I picked a small piece. And if I weigh this guy, 320, so this is a little bit around 11 ounces or so. Right? It's similar size, right? 14 grams difference is not a huge amount, right? So this is like an 11-ish ounce piece. And this picanha, which is a good thickness, if I weigh this, it's only 175 grams. Hey Google, what's 175 grams in ounces?
175 grams is equal to 0.386 pounds.
Hey Google, what's 175 grams in ounces?
175 grams is 6.173 ounces.
Right, so this is just a 6-ounce serving. So this is smaller than most fillets you might order, which would be like an 8-ounce fillet. But there's no way you could get a 6-ounce serving of a strip or a ribeye without it being like absurdly thin and difficult to cook. And that's what makes kind of, I think actually this, besides being very tasty, this is not my first time slicing a slab off of this. The portion sizing on this is really reasonable, right? Because this is less than a 7-ounce serving. So even if you're worried about like the fat cap is fatty or whatever, it's just a much smaller portion. So let me get these guys back in the freezer. And let me put this away. Now let's get some salt on this guy, and then get to this salt is very fine. It's pickling salt. Pickling salt is basically like kosher salt. It's pure. It doesn't have any anti-caking agents in it. Unlike kosher salt, it's very fine. And I like pickling salt better than kosher salt and the everyday salt because the fineness makes it dissolve faster. Faster dissolving is why it's called pickling salt. But of course, then you measure salt. It's got to measure it by weight because it's of course much denser. All right. Now let's relocate this to where I'm going to sear. That looks pretty good. Let me zoom in a little. Okay. Apologize for the wind noise now. It's gonna get smoky, so I need more fan. And I better put my apron on. Okay, so let's get started. So there's a good amount of fat in the fat cap, which is what I want to use primarily for the searing, but I'm going to need a little bit of oil in here to get started. So the log setup I have here is on my range I've got this powerful center burner, and then I have a Walkman as a flame concentrator at the bottom. Right, you can see that. And then, of course, the wok ring to sit my wok on. I'm going to wait for this to get real hot. And then let me start getting harvesting some of the fat out of the fat cap. And so with the wok cooking, the smoking oil is just inevitable, because you need that oil in order to carry the heat into the meat. But this turns out to be way easier to sear and get a really nice sear without a salamander, and way more even and darker than kind of the rubbing oil on the meat and putting it on a pan method. So let me start a kitchen timer. I'm not timing this exactly. I'm just looking for a total time of around 3 to 4 minutes. Hours? Ooh. Go for about 30 seconds, and I'll flip it. And we're already getting a pretty good crust there. A little bit more. Okay. Alright, let me get some edges on. Everything is by appearance except for that fat cap. The fat cap is thick. It needs more heat. So I think the strategy here, for me, is to get the sides looking decent. And then focusing on the fat cap for the remaining time. So let me touch this. Oh yeah, that's good and tender. Okay, let me turn the heat down a little bit, and now let's work on that fat cap a little more. To get a grip. Get a grip. All right, there we go. So that's the 3-minute mark. Although at this point I'm not too worried about overcooking it since I'm just working on the fat cap now. Maybe give the fat cap another 40 or so seconds. I'm going to turn the heat off, take down the residual heat a bit. And actually what I'm going to do is forget the timer. Done with the timer. I'm basically just going to work on the fat cap until we cool down enough that it stops smoking. Alright, so smoke is dying down. I mean, it's of course still hot. It's still sizzling, but okay, done. So this guy needs to rest a bit. Let's see if I can get a better view on this. Zoom out. Focus is not so great at this level of zoom. And that's still got a pretty good feel. Yep. Alright, so now let's get the rest of this meal ready. I need a plate. On a plate. And in the oven, I've got a potato, which I'll put here. And I'm going to let that rest in the oven. Now the oven is potato hot, right? So it's like 400 degrees, so I don't want to seal it back up. I'm going to leave the oven open so it doesn't get too hot in there. And then let me work on a salad. Ooh. Quickly. Whoa. Just got washed up. one more Persian cucumber. Oh. Let me make some salad dressing. Which, given that I'm eating steak, I'm going to make this fat-free salad dressing with some garlicky pickle juice. Mustard. And a little xanthan gum. Okay. And some pepper. I'm waiting for check the thickness with the xanthan gum. The xanthan gum's starting to take effect now. Just want to double check to make sure I don't need any more. I don't like my salad dressing super thick. I just need to be a little bit clingy. There we go. I think that's good enough. Okay. Now that this guy's probably sufficiently rested, move this away. Let's zoom into this. Let me try cutting into it. Nice and tender on the inside. Back up, not super crispy. Notice how much darker it looks now compared to what it was before. So let me cut into the center, and then not exactly medium rare. It's more around like medium, but this is a fairly fatty cut, so it actually, I think, tastes a little better with a little more doneness, right? I suppose I could have done a little bit less on the side and more on the sides here and more on the edges. And then let's fan out this potato. There we go. All right, and that's it. 6.5 ounces of picanha potato and a nice good salad. Time for lunch. Oh, that focus is really off.